So thanks for watching. It's Instagram Live with the Canadian Securities Exchange. I'm joined today by Shad Dales, founder of the Dales Report, which is a financial news portal profiling public companies, private companies, themes of the world in the world of in the realm of business in which we operate. So we'll touch on some of that today. And yes, we'll talk about sports, I'm sure, because of your background. We'll talk about some of your crazy stories from your very diverse career in broadcasting. Barrington wants to hear about marble races, and we've got the guys from New York at Happy Monkey just came in. So we've got like a great little audience here.
Nice.
Plus, this will go live on YouTube at some point tomorrow. So let's start off with this. So tell us a little bit about Dales Report and like what gave you the confidence to create a report with your name on it? What was the thinking behind that?
Good question. I haven't really been asked that before, but you know, it's more than just it's me. It's a voice, similar to like I guess what Ariana Huffington did at the Huffington Post. This is my story. This is my journey, and the people that I'm bringing along for the journey. It's like I've got different talents, different producers, different writers behind the scenes, and I found, having worked in the mainstream media world the last 15 years, like there's some staggering numbers that I saw each and every year. And it was the amount of people that are cutting their cable cord. We then as a corporation would turn around and we'd lay 15% of our staff off each and every year. It became more and more cutthroat. And that's just the change that's going on in the landscape of the media industry. So you've got to create original content. And this is why platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus and all these other streaming services they're starting to understand the true potential as to what's going on. And, you know, with me, you know, I find that when I was working at BNN Bloomberg, I saw a lot of these CEOs that came in and I had a lot of conversations. So it was kind of like the wealthy butler, so to speak, where you're sitting around and you're talking to these people and then you start coming up with ideas. And I just find that because there was more and more people being laid off in the mainstream media world, it was less and less resources of being able to shoot original content, meaning like on location, behind the scenes, kind of full access documentary style. And that's what people want to see in today's day and age. And I think the days of like the fancy studios and the four white walls, those days are over. And I find that with these new disrupting industries, they don't get enough attention. And that's what I want to create. I want to create a platform that's equivalent to a mainstream broadcast, which I can do based on my experience, and then shoot it in a way that people want to consume information in 2020. So I guess to answer your question and the name, this is my story. This is my journey. And, you know, this is it's more than just my name. It's a voice of a team that wants to bring you a lot of information on these new disrupting spaces.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's like no different than Ariana Huffington starting Huffington Post because she felt like there was a gap in the market, right? Between, you know, fringe blogging and mainstream journalism, which, and again, that platform covers stories that you won't typically see covered on MSN or, you know, CNN rather, or
And the opportunity now is, and like once I got out of the mainstream landscape, you know, it's a little alarming to think of how much data that we collect off of consumers. However, it's just that you can target pretty much anyone globally in any market. So if you want to get through to a mass audience and you sit down with a client, you can get through and you can track a lot of that and provide full wrap-up reports for your clients at the conclusion of their campaign where, you know, in traditional platforms where I was with TV and radio and those type of platforms before, like you would try to have a specific station that targets a specific kind of demographic, but it would be challenging in this day and age to provide a full wrap-up report as to like where their actual dollars went to. And once you build a model where you can do that, you're always going to be up against that. And that's just the way, again, the way the world is becoming more and more advanced.
So what do you think, based on your start with this, what topics, what sectors, what areas of interest are you seeing present themselves in your findings?
Well, I won't lie. Like when I first got into this, it was during the whole cannabis craze from a couple of years ago. And I don't think anything like the cannabis industry is far from over. I think we're kind of in a timeout, like it's halftime. But I think as things start to materialize in the US, I think what we saw in Canada will be like a speed bump compared to what will happen in the US. So cannabis definitely is at the forefront. I just took part in Canaccord Genuity's 2-day virtual conference on psychedelics, and wow, a lot of information that I've learned. We're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and we were already in kind of like an epidemic of like mental illness, anxiety, and depression. And when I saw the stats as to how many jobs are going to be replaced over the next 10 years because of AI, and let's face it, every 4 weeks, you adopt and you break habits. And I feel like because we've been in self-isolation for up to 2 months now, our world has changed as we know it. And because of that, I think you're going to see just drastic changes for every single industry. What are those changes? We don't know. But I just feel like there's these stories with psychedelics and how they want to, like, you know, help people with anxiety and depression. Obviously, it's still in the early stages, but yeah, that's definitely an industry that's caught my attention. And then, you know, esports. You know, the market share for betting was at 1% 6 weeks ago. Now it's at 50. And will that sustain itself when traditional sports comes back? Maybe, maybe not as big. But I think once people cross the line where they start to understand it, they're going to take part in something that they now understand. And then with sports betting, I think that's a big thing too. So those are my pillars right now that I'm focusing on because they're big emerging industries. And, you know, the tech industry as well. There's lots of stuff that's always fascinating. But those are the primary industries that I want to focus on and give people an insight on what companies to look for and what to expect and what are companies fundamentally sound that'll give you a calculated decision on what you want to do with your investment money.
Cool. And so I was thinking about how you take that interest in those sectors and then deliver valuable content for the people who want to know more. And you said, well, people are getting rid of the 4 white walls, and we're also developing new habits in our new environment. So that leads me to think like, okay, going forward, there's still some things we're going to still want to do from a content development standpoint. There's still certain, like we're still going to stand in front of cameras and talk and print stuff. But there's certain things that we are probably learning quite quickly aren't as valuable. Like we know here at the CSE, we produce a lot of content. We produce more content than probably definitely any of the other Canadian exchanges. But I look at like the NYSE and the NASDAQ and how much they do and how much of a pillar content marketing is. So to do all that content, you can't have high level production all the time. You got to just do things over your phone. I'm wearing this. You know, I sent everyone a microphone who does any sort of hosting. And that kind of thing is there's a happy medium. So I guess my question is to you is, what are you throwing out forever from a production standpoint? We don't need any more, but what are you going to keep? And then on top of that, what are some new habits and content development tools that you think are now more important than ever and that we're going to use even more going into this new paradigm?
Well, I just find like we live in a society where it's almost like FOMO, fear of missing out. You want to be somewhere, you want to be on location, you want to be at an event, you want to be at a party. It's all sorts of stuff like that. And that's kind of the vision that I have. And, you know, I was down in Miami a couple of months ago, and it was, you know, just some of the stuff that we shot just driving up and down the strip and like, you know, renting a Range Rover and stuff like that. It brings to life like where you are, and it makes the interview a little bit more engaging. But, you know, truthfully, to answer your question, I think you're right. It's just like, people want to see stuff that's less manufactured. They want to see real stuff now. And I find, like, quite honestly, I was nervous to do a lot of the hosting, and I've done a lot of hosting in my life, but it's just like, I felt like I needed to know everything about the finance world. And what I am is like, in addition to being a business and an entrepreneur right now, I'm an investor that wants to learn. And I think that's what's actually coming through right now with a lot of interviews that I'm doing. I'm just so interested in to learn. And I think for the everyday investor, that's what they want to see as well. It's like, represent what people want to know. So I'll do my due diligence. And this is the great with social media platforms, is that you can go into different Facebook groups or Reddit groups and say, okay, I'm going to be interviewing this person. What are important things that you want answers for? So if I'm a voice for the people, then let's sit down and let's give back, because that's what it's all about. Give back to what the information that people want to know. And quite honestly, it's like, you know, whether it's in a Range Rover in Miami, we wanted to go to Vegas. We had a lot of stuff lined up to be in Vegas for the NFL draft. We wanted to talk to a lot of celebrities about how the NFL has really loosened a lot of their grips on testing in the cannabis space. So why not interview some big high profile, like, athletes or celebrities, and what this means and how it'll change their lifestyle? Why not find out that kind of info? That's the kind of content that people want to hear and see about, right?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the conversational, a little more off the cuff style of getting what would traditionally be information presented to us in a very stuffy format. So like, well, we're talking about investing, so we're going to have to sit down in a studio, all wear suits, and because this is important, because we have to establish credibility. Now, you can kind of do something on a platform like Instagram, make it pretty democratic as to who can tune in and just have a conversation. And as long as you're not putting your foot in your mouth, I think the content is useful. And I still think the financial news industry is still struggling with that. I think, last I heard, ad buys are actually up on BNN, so people still see that as a viable platform. But, I've observed at least what they've tried to do or not do outside of that core format of television studio production, and it's negligible, right? And it makes me wonder how they think they're going to provide a full suite of news that covers the financial world when all they have is that 8 core hours a day of cable television.
Well, it's, I can say this from having worked there and the experience. It's like, this, James, we're going through a major shift in the world right now. We're about to have the biggest transformation of inheritance wealth in human history, from baby boomers to millennials. It's already starting to happen. And as much as we've seen change, happen drastically over the last 10 years, they say the next 10 is going to look like we were standing still in the last 10 years.
Great, just what I want.
Yeah, I know, huh? So, and we're actually getting a glimpse of it right now as we speak. But, there's guys that I've worked with that made big 6-digit salaries in business development and were traumatized when they had to leave their job at like 73, 4 years old. Then they come back, 6 months later in the middle of summer, like they spent a weekend at Bernie's with their sunglasses on, and they're like, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It's like a generation that identifies themselves based on who they are with what they do. And I get it. It's a tough habit to break, but this is what's going to happen. I think there's a long overdue change in our economy. And when it starts to happen like it is now, it's going to change rather fast. And when I see this, I've got a lot of team in place that are in their late 20s and early 30s. And even me being 43 years old, I can't believe how much of a difference it is in what they know and what I don't. So saying that, it's like, I need to ask the questions. Some of the people even you worked with, like Grace, for example, she had some great feedback for me. Like when we were talking the one time, like, my generation likes to grow up and watch TV on Instagram. And I was like, I wasn't aware of that. But I think those are the open minds that you have to have. You have to have those conversations and find out, what people want to consume and how they want to consume it. And I will say to this point too, like, don't get me wrong, baby boomers are still a very valuable part of the economy and the industry. But I just find if you want to watch like a fancy studio with a fancy desk and all that sort of stuff, you can get that with the mainstream media network. So how do you differentiate yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out Grace, shout out. We also have someone on the channel who's from India. So they said I'm India, but I think they meant that they're in India, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah. CSE is for the people anywhere you are in the globe. Not hearing any sound issues on my end. So if anyone else is hearing sound issues, let me know. You sound great as usual, Shad. Speaking of which, so someone, Grace had actually asked earlier if you could give us some radio voice. I know you're not on a radio mic, so that might be really unfair. So maybe at the end, I'll let you come through in your subconscious.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do something at the end. So
you're listening to my podcast with James Black.
There we go. Actually, we need someone to do we need some voiceover work done. So maybe we've just unearthed something useful here. Okay. So back to the conversation, a lot changing. The world is changing. The economy is obviously going to change. A lot of things are going to not happen the way they used to. What do you foresee then going forward with the Dales Report as a platform? What are your prospects for growth around the type of content you want to develop? We talked about shooting conversations with people in cars. You know, we're gonna do more car videos? Like, what's your?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. I think some of the stuff like with sports betting taking off, obviously you got to look at where traditional sports are, but some of the things that we had in mind were like back end access passes to, like, you know, the Kentucky Derby or the Major League All-Star game and that kind of stuff. I wasn't even aware of this, that like almost half the NFL football stadiums across the league that have actually started building sports betting theaters within their actual stadiums. So that's the kind of stuff that obviously we want to bring to, like, you know, life. And, you know, I look at some of the platforms right now with Bleacher Report. They do a sports betting show at Caesar's Palace, you know, something that we're in the talks with right now about launching. I think that's important content that people want to have.
Yeah.
And then as well, it's like, you know, once the travel restrictions start to open up, you know, I want to go on location and I want to fly to, like, say, Africa, or I want to fly to, like, say, like various parts of the US. And I want to find out, like, you know, what are these cannabis facilities like and how do they operate? And what are you doing within local communities that's generating jobs? So let's talk to, let's say, mayors of different towns, people that are actually getting jobs, how you're changing people's lives. Partnerships that, you know, certain cannabis companies in the medical side are partnering with different hospitals that are focused on epilepsy. Let's talk to families that have dealt with that and how they were the I don't want to say the cure, but a step in the right direction in the overall quality of their life. That's, so to give you a flat out answer, I want to be on location that provides content that the everyday person, consumer, and investor can relate to.
That's a nice intersection. I can appreciate that. We used to do an interview series, which we haven't done in a while, called On the Street.
Yeah.
And part of the idea was, okay, if we can't get to your grow up, a lot of the times it's hard, or if we can't get to your mining facility, your you know, your patch that you're developing, or get to where your office is because it's remote. At least let's talk to you on the street. Let's get outside. Let's at least be somewhere tangible that's not as stuffy as a studio. And, you know, oftentimes you go on Bay Street or Howe Street in Vancouver and just get people, put them in that environment where every day they're probably spending multiple hours, you know, putting feet to pavement. And that's where you start to get a little bit of a more realistic picture of how these people operate and how they do things. Because, again, when you get in the studio, you're sitting there and it's unnatural, right? You got these lights hammering at you. The person asking the question probably just took 20 minutes before the segment, if that, with the producer to get a bunch of questions, which are all, you know, pretty much layup questions. They often don't challenge the situation.
Yeah.
And you know, you just go there and kind of rinse, you know, you go and you just do it. I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying it doesn't give you that authentic, real insight into what these people are really doing. Yeah.
I think studio interviews definitely still serve their purpose. It's just, there's variety now. And now that people, it's just, we live it and breathe it every single day, the way we consume information. And it's right at the palm of our hand with our phones and with the way we're looking at different stuff. So everything, I guess, has their advantages. And I don't know, like, just for me personally, I look, my heart goes out to everybody that's been affected by this virus. And even if you don't know anybody that has it, you're going through a tough time mentally and emotionally, hang in there. You're not alone. You know, reach out to people if you can, just for a support group. If you got issues and going on in your mind right now, don't bury those. Try to talk them through. And I'm sure the person next door to you is going through the exact same thing. And if you want to make yourself feel better, you know, keep a safe distance, but go wash maybe your neighbor's windows. Or, you know, like I said,
I'm dying for someone to come do that, by the way. So.
But, you know, my point is like, we're going to get through this. You know, this too shall pass, so to speak, as they say. And most importantly, too, like, you know, there comes a time where, like, I guess we have to adapt and we have to change and accept the situation for what it is. But I do think there's a lot of great opportunities that can actually be materialized once we get past through all this. It's just, we're going to have to adjust and change. But I think once we accept the full capabilities of change, I know over the last 6 weeks for me, I didn't even know how to use Zoom all that much. Now I'm putting together like how many interviews every single week with people, and it's been a breath of fresh air learning new things.
Yeah, it is. And you know, if you've got family at home, I know it can be somewhat, oops, I just flipped my camera there somehow.
All good.
Yeah. Let's flip her back. There you go. Yeah, I guess I haven't learned how to use an iPhone yet. Yeah, just getting your hands dirty, learning how to do new stuff because you don't have those resources is always sometimes you come up with new ways of doing stuff that actually was better than what was there before. So, and then you get a better insight as to how stuff just works, which, you know, obviously when you understand how the rest of, you know, when you take all the ingredients, you know, how the meal is made, you can make your own improvements and embellishments on the recipe. And as content creators, I mean, understanding the tools is absolutely critical. So, yeah, I think that's a really good insight, and I appreciate it. And I'll echo what you're saying about just staying positive. It's there's a lot of things to be positive about. You know, that's why we're trying so hard to connect with people on these shows through this content, just to let people know that business is still going. People are still going out there and creating stuff, creating value. I mean, the market's reflecting that. It's not all falling apart. And you just hope that at the end of the day, not too many people are affected adversely from this terrible disease. So I actually have an audience question, and I think this is a good place to transition. So Phil Shum asks, can you name 2 best practice communication strategies to engage their investors? I don't know why it's 2. Could be 1, could be 3.
Can you name 2 best practice communication strategies to engage their investors?
Let me flip it on you. Earlier, you said you're an investor.
Yeah.
So what resonates with you when someone's trying to communicate to you a investment proposition? What will capture your attention more than anything that you can think of?
I think it just comes down to like, what really grabs my interest as far as like an investment opportunity? It's a really good question. I think it just comes down to like, you know, the overall quality of the content. You know, how good is the writer and how much research have they done? You know, I find that a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now is, look, I have the fortunate of like living in Toronto and being downtown and doing a lot of networking. And that takes time. And, you know, there's certain people that you meet where, you know, they might be good for you. They may not be good for you, but you got to be a good judge of character. And through that networking capabilities, that takes over time. And as you start to understand them and their career and the people that they know, in addition to that, I would say, you know, that's the kind of stuff that grabs my attention. Like, you know, my broker works at Canaccord Genuity, and I think of like, they're kind of like a disruptive brokerage firm. And I'm like, seriously, like magic mushrooms and MDMA, like that's an actual thing with psychedelics. But then you sit down and through these people, through networking, I'm able to take part in a 2-day virtual conference. And one of the companies I found out has agreements already with a various amount of social media influencers that have over 100 million people audience size. So then I find out one of the guys, his wife, she's like in a big ad agency out in LA, and they've worked with people like the Kardashians. So those are kinds of companies that interest me because they've got obviously a good marketing strategy behind. So I would say, to answer that question, obviously, I don't know if this is it's just taking advantage of the resources that you have, doing key networking, and making, I guess, calculated decisions based off of that. And that's kind of what my platform is all about, where I want to network through to people and then present a lot of that content onto my platform.
Yeah. So and actually I'll jump on what Grace just put there. It's all about the micro influencers. So if I understand that point, and I'm sure I don't completely appreciate it, but in today's day and age, like you said, Kardashians, getting access to a Kardashian to help you sell something is very difficult. They're very expensive. There's a high barrier to entry, and they may not even do it. But below the Kardashians and everyone else in the social sphere online, there's a lot of people who do have large followings that are more niche and longer tail, that are more than willing to either take your money or work with you on promoting a product. And don't overlook those people. They're there to help. They're building their own social network. for you to leverage. And it's because there's people gravitating to very specific audiences out there that are, you're going to see it like with psilocybin and stuff like that. Actually, big shout out if the Happy Monkey guys are still watching, but that's exactly what they're doing. They're building a content platform about cannabis lifestyle, and the value for someone to go and participate in their network is tremendous because they're not Snoop Dogg, but they're connected in ways that maybe Snoop isn't even. And in that sense, their ability to help someone like an Al Harrington, who's just on their show. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is just like, it's got a lot of value. So micro-influencer means a smaller following, but more engaged. Yes, exactly. So I think that's a great point. And it's something we're trying to look at doing here as well. So it's, I appreciate that you guys brought that up. That's really, really insightful. Okay. Job. So yeah. Thanks. I love the participation. We still haven't figured out why cars. I want to know. You're skirting around it, Shad.
I'm not the original one, that's for sure. There's a lot
more. But why? Why are people in cars? Just like in your own,
I'll be honest, your own
words. Why do people interview people in cars?
When I went to Miami, I went to a conference and I walked into a room and there was like 20 different companies with small little booths, and I'm like, "You're in Miami. There's palm trees. There's beautiful people. There's fancy cars. Like people love Miami." So, I just felt like I don't want to be the platform where people come to me. I want to be the platform where I go to the people. So, sometimes like I've done some interviews like in downtown Toronto with like, say, for example, Bruce Linton. Bruce Linton had a couple of meetings with investors with this new, technology that he's working on down in the state of Texas. And after that, he had to give a lecture at Ryerson University. So literally, like, we're picking him up. Or Alvaro Torres from Chiron. Like he had a investor relations luncheon that he had to do. And then afterwards he had to catch a plane to Bogota. So we pick him up, grab the Escalade, and we drive him out to the airport. So, I guess to answer your question about the car, it's
practical.
It's practical for people that, we got to go to them. And, I just found like some of the stuff that we did, like I said, recently, we would have done a lot more stuff, but, the travel restrictions prevent us from actually, going out and doing a lot of stuff. And obviously with the self-isolation. But when we were down in Miami towards the end of February, which is a week before this whole pandemic unfolded, it's every CEO that walked away was like, this is awesome. Like the way this is set up, it's just something different. It's out of box. And then when we shot and edited and produced everything afterwards, we got some great feedback.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the show Cash Cab. No one would watch it if it was like Cash Corner.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why, but yeah. And I hear you. Maybe there's a new business idea for someone. Make it like Speaker's Corner, but a taxi or an Uber.
Yeah.
Person comes in, they don't pay cash, but they give you content.
Ooh.
There you go. Run with that. Someone take that.
It's yours.
God.
That was good.
There you go. This is we're all about the ideas here, right?
Yeah.
Let me see. I do have more questions for you. Okay, let's learn more about Shad. And I know you have a 2:00 meeting, so I don't want to leave you too unprepared for that. You used to be a broadcaster, and you just mentioned that your skills are coming in handy these days. And so I'm going to ask you two questions. One is, maybe this is kind of back to Phil saying, if I'm a novice broadcaster, which I am, we all are, what are the first 1 or 2 or 3 things, again, numbers don't matter, that they teach you or try to drill into your brain at broadcaster school that you should do, other than picking your nose and stuff like that?
When I went to broadcasting school back in late 90s, I can't believe how much it's changed. Because like I said, there's a lot of broadcasters out there that are very manufactured that know how to read a really good teleprompter. Yeah. Those days are over. It's like, you got to be you. And here's the thing. Some of the best broadcasters that I ever worked with, say, for example, Marilyn Dennis. Okay?
Yes.
Marilyn Dennis is the exact same person off camera as she is on camera.
Yeah.
On-air talent, it's almost like having an iPhone and think you're a photographer. There's certain people that deserve X amount of dollars because they're on-air talent. They have talent. They just have that captivating personality Like everybody wants to have a podcast now because Joe Rogan has a podcast, right? Joe Rogan sells out. He's a stand-up comedian. He's an actor. He's a famous broadcaster at the UFC. The guy has talent.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm actually wanting to be a good broadcaster, you got to be you. But what does that mean? I think what makes a good broadcaster is basically his experiences in life and the things that he's learned. Get outside of your comfort shell. Go to places that you've never been before. Speak to people that you never ever really actually grew up with. Start to learn what other people are thinking and doing that you now know nothing about. And I think from there, you start to mature and you grow. And behind that, you start to build character. And with character is a great story. Yep. And that's what makes a good broadcaster. So to have the big radio, television voice, like those were great for 30-second ads 30 years ago. But that's not the way advertisements sold anymore. You're probably already seeing it. Like 30-second ads still exist, but they seem very dated. You see content and advertisement built within content right now. That's the way the model's going. But to your original question, like I think you got to take chances, and you just got to have the ability to like learn and learn. And as Gary Vaynerchuk says, just get in front of the camera and screw up. Yep. You know, when I started a year ago, this whole idea of this platform, there's a lot of mistakes that I've made, but they've made me smarter. And I'm sure in 6 months to a year from now, I'll look back at this interview and go, oh my God, I had no idea what I was talking about. But it's not about perfectionism. It's about progress. And that goes towards anything in life.
Yeah. Brilliant answer, Shad. I could go, I talk about this for an hour. The whole concept of just repetition, you can't replicate repetition. You have to just do, right? Just do it. Yeah. We had Howie Mandel on the show, and he
how was that?
He said that it was amazing. I mean, he was an amazing guest, and you talk about someone who's a professional, but also very philosophical and very business oriented, which he doesn't get enough credit for. He's not just a comedian. He's probably a lot like what Joe Rogan is, a smart person beyond just figuring out that podcasts were going to be big. He's part of the reason they are big, but
good for you to get a different side of Howie Mandel that people haven't seen, right?
And Anil's on the show right now, and he was one of the hosts, and he kept us for longer than we had planned because he wanted to delve more into that. But that idea of getting perspectives and then getting in front of people who you typically wouldn't is great. It's just, but my point being is he says in the show near the end, his favorite slogan is the Nike slogan. It's just do it. Right. Just do it. I mean, there's certain places where you can't completely F up, but, for the most part, I mean, as a society and as viewers, we're all pretty forgiving. Barrington mentions Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace. He was a writer and a broadcaster, first, chef first, but you said that whole thing about getting out of your comfort zone. The best writers do that. They get into these experiences. And I'll say this, like, honesty is also authenticity, and honesty is also very important to creating that connection through a camera, right? So I can tell you're a very authentic and honest person. We've had guests come on here who have shared that same level of candor. And then you have guests who decide that, instead of giving us that level of insight, they're going to just give us the notes. And that's fine too. We're a stock exchange. They don't necessarily feel like they can get into that level. But where I'm going with this is that as an exchange who does a lot of self-publishing and corporate publishing, we do need to challenge a little bit this concept of, what's appropriate and not appropriate, or where's the line. I think we're allowed to talk to each other as humans and as entrepreneurs and get to the core of these stories with all the sugarcoating of, I have to impress all the time, because that gets in the way of the true story.
I 100% agree. And I just feel like I love this interview. I love, talking to you and you guys at the CSE, you're very good at what you do, but what's even better is you're great people. And I'm sure if Richard is here listening, it's just like when I was in Vegas, I don't know how many exclusive parties you guys got invited to. And I was always just like, well, can I come?
I wasn't there.
I don't know why I showed up to all these parties, and then out of nowhere across the room, Richard would turn around the corner and he would see me and he's like, Shad, are you stalking me? But anyway,
maybe he's looking for a lift. He was waiting for a ride.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's learn, ask a lot of questions that you may not know, apply what you know, and in conclusion, it's like share, I guess, that experience with other people. And I know, to me, that's what makes the world a better place, is that if you can talk about stuff that people can relate to, and you talk about, some wins, you talk about some struggles, I think that's what people want to see and hear. So that way they know that, you know what, I'm experiencing the exact same thing. And that's what's most important.
Yeah, and it'll build trust, whether you're an executive. So just to tie back into finance real quick, you're an executive and you're talking about your story. The way you're going to build trust is by having that authentic, representation of what you're going through. And then if you're an investor, look for that. Look for the people who are presenting all sides of the story, or being very transparent about who they are and what they do at their business. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, I think the reason he's resonated is because you get everything from him. There's no barrier. I imagine he's the kind of guy you would meet and go, I know you already, because you've presented that.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I've got lots of examples of people who I think are completely different off camera, but I don't want to talk about them.
I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah. No, there's probably more than we need. Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know you're up against time. I was going to say, for a future interview, I do want to talk about your experience as a ring announcer. I'm going to leave that one for today. I don't think it fits necessarily what we talked about, but I'll just say, if people want to follow Shad Dales and the Dales Report, your own namesake, where do they go? What's the website and what should they do?
So the handles on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at the Dales Report, thedalesreport.com. Stories we got today, I was able to interview back in Miami Chris Crane. He's the president of Forefront. So this was a company that was acquiring a lot of licenses with cannabis companies across the U.S. and they decided to get involved in the game. So they understand the back end of it and partnered up with a company called CanX, which was like the leading cannabis company in the state of Washington, which was a very competitive state. So interesting information there. And then, they can just go on to thedalesreport.com or at the Dales Report. And at the same time, too, got a lot of great content on just, how the esports betting landscape has emerged over the last couple of weeks. And one particular Canadian AI company that we did a story on yesterday is up over 1,800% over the last week. So we did some deep diving into that. And got a great team of writers right now that are doing their due diligence. And just keep plucking away day by day.
Exactly. Well, thanks again for your time. Thanks for the compliments to our team. I know many of them are watching and appreciate what you're saying.
Anil, Barrington, Grace, Richard, following you.
I think Marianne Palangio, our new CFO, is watching too. So shout out to her. Yeah, our newest member. If you just tuned in the last couple of minutes, this show will be broadcast again on CSE TV on YouTube. That's CSE space TV on YouTube. We put all our content there, whether it's our Instagram Live or it's stuff from our hashtag finance podcast or on the streets or whatever. You are missed. We will see you soon in the office. I know you come through on a regular basis. I got your chair sitting there, which I can't wait to sit on again. But I want to thank you again. Keep well. Everyone, take care out there. Stay safe and keep connecting. It's the one message. Just keep connecting. And like Chad alluded to, we will all get through this. So thanks again for watching. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.